Hi, I'm Justin Frederelli, and you're watching Tennis Ninja TV.
Aloha tennis fans! Welcome again to Tennis Ninja TV. I'm your host Shane Cashin. And guys, before we get into the interview, like I mentioned last time, I just want to let you know Tennis Ninja gear is in, guys. I have hats, visors, t-shirts, masks, you name it. If you get one of these things, you're not only supporting me, you're supporting tennis and growing tennis and promoting it. And get to our guest today, which I'm really excited to have here today. He is currently the head coach of the Hawaii Pacific University men's Division II college tennis team, and he was also a player for that school. He hails from Germany, but he's home now and friends with us in the community here in Hawaii. Guys, say hello to Hendrik Bodie. Hendrik, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Hendrik, what's been happening, man? I know with college tennis and with all of a sudden COVID shows up and we have this crazy thing happening in our lives. And I'm sure it must have affected college tennis in general and probably interrupted you guys last season, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a bit of a ride the last 6-7 months. Since this whole thing started. I mean, as you know, probably everyone knows by now. The NCAA decided to basically cancel everyone's season in mid-March. We actually had just come back from Oklahoma City. We had the ITA Indoor Championships, and we came back here, and it really wasn't. It just went within a couple days from fully competing to being fully shut down. And 2 or 3 weeks later, all our players or school went fully online. Most of our players, decided we got to get home in a hurry. How the situation was here for the longest time until they opened back up. Now it's obviously not looking so good, but yeah, it's been interesting to say the least. Not being on court for that extended period of time and having a season canceled in the middle of it. Um, I thought because of the fact that everything happened so fast, it almost went past you a little bit because it's all new. But yeah, it's been one of those that I think as we already talked about, you kind of have to take day by day. Every day is a little different. Sometimes it's a little better, sometimes it's a little worse, but you go with what's put in front of you.
How have you been able to adjust personally? I'm sure you've been wanting to get on the court, and then we were out for a summer, and then now there's no tennis again. How have you been holding up through this?
Yeah, it's been all right. I mean, there's a lot of other things we do within our jobs that we can keep ourselves busy with for sure. A lot of things that you just usually don't, I don't want to say get untouched, but just don't get done really. So we've been able to catch up on that. A lot of Zoom calls, a lot of phone calls, a lot of talking to recruits, a lot of talking to our players, and so it's been good. On the flip side also, it really, for me personally, or with wife and daughter, it's been great to spend that much time with them, just being at home. And that part has been very enjoyable, really. Yeah.
Hendrik, I wanted to talk about your tennis journey and just your story getting into Hawaii and doing what you do now in the sport. And I've always been curious about how did Hendrik Bodie start picking up the racket? What inspired you to play as a young kid or even older than that?
As a young kid, I'm trying to, read that question. I was actually trying to think back. I remember my one of my parents' friends brought home this old school Adidas racket, I want to say, and it had these rainbow colored strings on them, and I was super stoked about it, and just started playing with it, and just started hitting against the wall. And I don't know, I literally never stopped. My dad had to repaint the wall multiple times, and he's just like, maybe we got to get him into tennis. It seems like he enjoys it. So started playing with a few friends of mine. I was playing a lot more soccer when I was younger, significantly more than I was playing tennis. But I just really loved playing. Every day I would come home from school. I mean, you usually get out of school about 1 o'clock or so, and just jump on my bike and ride to the tennis club in the next village from where I grew up, and just wait until someone would show up. Until then, I would just, hit the 2 balls I have, hit him over the net, walk over to the other side, and do the same thing again and hit him back. Just spend a lot of time on a tennis court playing, and that's basically how I got started.
Considering soccer and tennis were really two of the biggest sports over there, and right now, what was the attraction to pick tennis, Hendrik?
I was better at it. I wasn't a terrible soccer player by any means. It was just one of those things that I thought maybe suited me a little more. I loved it, but then again, I was really, really into tennis. I don't know. As I said, I just every second I had, I would literally sleep with my tennis rackets, in my bed, and obviously that wasn't the case with the soccer balls. So that's what I elected to do. Actually, my dad was a bit of an influence. He had a very, very bad knee injury that occurred during his time playing soccer that, knocked him out for almost a year and a half, 2 years. And he was like, look, if you're looking at longevity and playing something for a long time, soccer probably isn't one of them. You'll be able to play it for a long time. You get a lot out of it. And I think it's, as a kid, to build athletic foundation, it's incredible. It's super valuable to just teach you about, space and vision and just coordination in general. But at the same time, you probably max out at 40, 50 until your body starts completely breaking down if you're playing at a high level. With tennis, obviously, it's a sport of a lifetime. And that was certainly one of those things that, I early on, whether it was intentionally or not, thought was important.
I'm not too familiar, Hendrik, with how the things work in Germany with the juniors and how juniors are brought up over there and what you guys play. Do you remember any highlights in particular from your days as a junior over there?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously it's changed quite drastically from when I grew up until now. Obviously now you have a lot more academies and a lot more, tennis bases where people go and train from a younger age on. Like how I grew up was a lot through the, tennis federation within our state. And then if you're, one of the best there, then you move on and so forth. But very early on, I thought it was a really good selection process of, just judging kids' athletic ability rather than tennis ability. And then they kind of pick you. And if you just get a certain score and certain athletic abilities, whether that's throwing or sprinting or movement, jumping, all of those things, you're like, okay, and you play tennis, and, you move on. And they give you a referral to whatever I guess it would be the county's tennis coach. And while you go to tournaments, then you keep going to state and then so forth. So that was kind of the progression. And, it's always been really, for me, it was always about playing. In my life as a tennis player, junior, I want to say I took one private lesson. I was 10 years old with, it was just like a Christmas present, I think, from my parents. And I actually distinctively remember that lesson because I kept running to every single ball to pick it up because I wanted to get out of it. But outside of that, it was just really playing a ton of tennis with all ages, with all, even I played a ton against girls when I was younger, a ton against older people, against younger. So there was just playing is really most of what I remember at a younger age.
Interesting how you bring that up, Hendrik, because that is something I've kind of picked up over the years as a coach, is juniors seem to develop very differently based on if you play only with juniors or when you go play anybody and everybody. And it's not the first time I've heard that story from players who come up from Europe. How was that, playing against adults or kids and really just any level, anybody over there, and how it helped your development personally?
In terms of development, I mean, personally for me as a tennis player, but also as, like your character development, what you learn early on, it's huge. I just remember it's pretty challenging on one side because you keep losing to players that you perceive as having absolutely zero skill, and you cannot figure out why this is happening. And I started playing in men's leagues. I want to say the age minimum was 13, so I started at 12 and a half because I had an exemption to start early because I was born in the right year. I just didn't win. I just couldn't. I was pretty good, but I just couldn't beat someone that understood the game of tennis. That to do that understood, okay, well, all I got to do is hit the ball short, bring this little kid to the net because I was very short. Bring this kid to the net, lob him, he can't overhit, and there you go. And so you get frustrated, and like you go home and you're all flustered, and you think the world is ending because again you got beat. It's tough, but it's very good because it teaches you how to play the game and actually understand what you need to do on the tennis court. Not necessarily in terms of, your technical development, but just, understanding how to compete, understanding how to play, and evaluate your opponents from, the warm up to just the first couple games, really. I mean, it was a huge benefit for me once I got into actual tournament play and higher level competition, because that's the biggest value to me, honestly, in all of those things, because you see so many different levels of players, but types of players, and it's just a much bigger sample size for you to look at, which, naturally gives you a better understanding of what you got to do.
That brings us to now kind of where we knew you and start to know you here in Hawaii. You made the trip over the Pacific and the Atlantic, and you're playing now for Hawaii Pacific University, which I've got my shirt on. Take us through that journey, Hendrik. Before Hendrik, the coach over there, as a player, what do you remember in particular from those years that kind of helped mold you to where you now are today?
I think the 4 years, however long you're involved in the college tennis scene as an athlete, is probably the biggest you develop as a person and hopefully tennis player as well. So there's a ton of things I remember, and they go from, relationships, friendships that I still have now. That probably honestly is the biggest value I got out of it. It's just building relationships with people that you can share for a lifetime. But also the competitive aspect is very, very different. For me, I think that's the one thing that is so valuable for college athletics in general, because as it exists in the US, it doesn't really, I don't think it really exists in a lot of other places that way. And it shapes you to be a better team player, because that's what it's about. I mean, we as tennis players are naturally brought up to be thinking about ourselves, about our game, compete on our own. I mean, you're out there on your own. Every decision you make is about you, is about, how are you going to manage to, maneuver a certain situation. College tennis or college athletics is not that. It's thinking about the guy next to you. And that, to be honest, was a very, very difficult transition for me to make. I would coach myself now. Oh my God. I would be yelling at myself all day, every day. I mean, it's I mean, looking back at it, it's pretty shocking. And, there's a lot of kids now that go through the same thing. And, now looking back at it, having a bit of a better perspective, I would say it's no one's fault. I mean, you can blame whoever, but at the end of the day, our sport is an individual sport. And thinking about the team aspect in an entirely different way, and understanding that, yes, you have to be competing on your own, but the only reason you're going to be doing this is to do well for the team and to, improve your teammates and do all those things. It's not a different task to understand. So that's been the most valuable thing, and also the most memorable part to me. I remember making the semifinals as a player. It was great. I mean, it was, like the biggest accomplishment you can feel, because if you have something that you can share with others, some successes, it's just, yeah, it's exponentially better.
How exactly, Hendrik, though, did you get the offer from HBU? How did that happen and get the connection on that? Because you're over in Germany and then you fly to the Pacific. I mean, where'd that come from?
Oh, you mean as a player?
Yeah, as a player.
Well, it's not a funny story, but I actually had a good friend of mine who I grew up playing with. He's now the AD at Lamar University, I think. He was playing college tennis, and he was one of the few people I knew that had gone to the US in 11th grade as like a exchange student for a year. And, so he knew a little bit about it, because back then there was no recruiting agency. There was, that none of that was really around. And if it was kind of really unheard of to use it. He contacted me one day and said, "Hey man, what are you gonna do after you graduate high school?" I was thinking, I said, "Well, I have no idea. I don't know. Actually had applied for a job with VW to be starting and training in IT. That process took a long time, the selection process, and at the same time he had contacted me, so I was talking to the coaches. Middle Tennessee State University would obviously have looked a lot different. I mean, I think they were top 20 in the country D1 at that time. So I just was like, sure, I'll do it. My dad kind of reinforced that idea multiple times, because he was put in a position in his early 40s where from, I want to say, like a Friday to Monday, he needed to be able to speak English. And he
Wow.
a single word of English. So, he's like, look, the best thing you can do is have the ability to communicate in a lot of different ways, and learning English has to be one of those things. So I don't want to say he forced me out of the house, but I mean, we're clear that was a very good choice, and it was. I mean, obviously, looking back at it, I could not have made a better choice. So I had signed, a scholarship, paperwork, etc., with all of that stuff with Middle Tennessee at that time. Found out, I think it was late June, I wasn't eligible to play D1. I was a terrible student in high school. My focus was playing tennis, so I just didn't put much into it. So I didn't do so well on the SAT either, so I was just a little short on that end. So I missed it by, I think I was like 10 points or whatever, 20 points short on the SAT. So the coach called me and said, "Hey man, this is not going to work out unless you retake this test, but then you won't be able to do that until November, and then come in January. What do you want to do?" I'm like, I don't know. I kind of was set on going now. Decided to reach out to maybe three schools, one in Florida, one in California, and the last one was HBU. And then I think I just looked for places with very small or limited roster sizes, so teams that had a lot of seniors, where I was, okay, maybe there's a chance that they still have openings, etc. And Stefan had just gotten, Pumpelov had just gotten the position here at HBU. So I sent an email, and he basically responded, because I was cleared with the NCAA. Well, it was then the NCAA clearinghouse. It was good to go, basically. He just said, "Yep, let's do it. Here are the details." 4 weeks later, I was here.
Getting to play over at HBU from, again, Germany, and then now you're in this team environment. Do you remember any like big time matches you played back then, or when the school had something on the line? You did mention something about the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, well, for sure. We played in the semifinals. I believe it was against Armstrong Atlantic. It was then played a. This is actually not going to be a positive. It was like we got annihilated in doubles. But I distinctively remember that, because I remember going into that match and like, I'm so fired up. We're going to go, we're going to do this. And we got absolutely blasted off the court. No chance. I think it was 8-1 or maybe 8-0. I have no idea. And I just remember walking off the court. Oh my God, that was the worst thing to go through to start off the semifinal match. But then playing doubles, obviously play doubles first, right? So then you go play a singles match after. We're down 2-1, and this entire match, because it was my last college match, was such a unique match to play, because you go through so many different emotions, because you know that's going to be the last one. And you just you want to do well, but you just can't find the freedom to actually, swing after you've lost. It was one of the most challenging, yet, looking back at it, unique matches I've ever played. In terms of positives, I played the ITA regionals actually when my freshman year. Played a very good player from UC San Diego and won that match. Yeah, I just remember that was probably one of the better matches I've played in college. I really didn't play as good in college as I probably could have. Want to say I did a little bit too much thinking. Wanted a bit too bad and never really figured out how to play with my emotions and just let them be and just don't worry about all the outside things. But yeah, that match for sure. ITA regionals and then the semis at NCAAs are kind of standout matches.
Now you're kind of sharing that knowledge as the head coach of your alma mater, HBU. You've been there for 8 years, according to the HBU website, and you bagged a national title too, which is so huge. Which congrats still. What's that been like, making that transition from player to coach at your alma mater, and now finding yourself mentoring, well, not really kids, but adults who now are in the exact same situation you were before? What has that been like?
I was helping out with the team as a graduate assistant and then as an assistant. So, I was doing it for a year or so, and I really liked it. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't, envisioning, okay, this is something I really want to do. And then one day I remember an athletic director asked me, hey, would you be interested in, just taking over the program at that time? It was 2011. I said, sure. I was just, I had finished school, but I did have, the ability to work here. And I said yes. It seemed like a good thing to do, like a natural transition. I will say it was very challenging in the beginning. It's one thing to being a graduate assistant or an assistant coach, but now you're in charge. So if anything happens, that's your fault. It's just, there's no one else to blame. And it was pretty fresh still. So a lot of the things that I was experiencing on the court were more from a player's perspective rather than they're now from a coach's perspective. I mean, I think over the years you kind of learn how to totally distance yourself from the emotional aspect of a game without forgetting it, because I think the longer you do it, that's at least been the experience for me, the more you actually have to reinsert yourself into a competitive environment. Don't forget that, yes, at 5-4 in the third set, when you're playing for a national championship, you can't like, look, man, just, hit a short cross-court angle and then come in and, it's like, that doesn't work. It's, you best not say anything and, just be like, look, whatever your favorite players, go for it. And then that's about the best you can do. But that's been challenging. It's been a wild ride. I mean, as I said before, you're working with kids that are hopefully spending the most important 4 years of their life in college, at least from a development as a tennis player and more importantly, character. So that's been very, very rewarding. I mean, I now get messages from players that, we had 10 years ago and 9 years ago. And, those things really make every struggle you have 100% worthwhile. It's just a little note here saying, hey, the one thing you told me and whatever for me now was 2011. I can't imagine how that must feel like for someone that's done this for 30, 40 years. It's just incredibly rewarding. It's one of those things that I think you got to do for the long term. If you're looking for short, quick, wins, sure, they happen on a daily basis, but those are usually not the ones that stick.
You've had the hand of coaching so many awesome players that are also well known in Hawaii now. Peter Michnev, now a professional player, Jaume Martinez Vic, Jan Renault, Thibaut Berlin. The list goes on. And at least all of them had one part in this team that you were building up. Everybody, I want to make sure the world and people know about the 2016 National Championship. Because, guys, national champions in college tennis, that is huge. That's like the equivalent of the Super Bowl for tennis in college tennis. Hendrik, we all want to know. Take us through that year and the memories you still can recall from it leading up to that crazy cool moment.
I think winning a national championship is unbelievable, but I think, you probably saw that there's this little cartoon that, shows first place, second, third place, and then you have everything that goes into actually winning it. So, it's like a three-year thing, because we did lose 2 finals the year before. I truly believe that that was the reason we actually finally broke through. But that year was a phenomenal memory overall, because we shared so many incredible moments together. One of the coolest thing that happened to us that year, and I do want to say that was such a huge bonding moment. National championships were going to be in Denver that year. And as you know, Denver is in altitude, so it plays a lot different than, anywhere else you'd play. Your breathing is different. You'll literally run, 100 yards down the street and you're just out of breath. You need a little, getting acclimated and getting used to it. So we decided, okay, we're going to take a trip in March and go to Denver and play some matches there. And, a few that, we're probably going to win and a few that are going to be very challenging. So we did. We played 3 out of 4 matches indoors because it just snowed, and it was March, and which was anticipated. And we did play the team indoors that we ended up playing in the finals of the NCAAs. We go through a trip and we had to leave. I don't remember what specific day it was, but we go to bed at night and then we wake up in the morning of the day we're supposed to fly back to Hawaii. We wake up and look outside and it's 3 feet of snow.
Oh boy.
So we're like, all right, everyone, just get in the car. We'll go to the airport, and as we drive to the airport, it just keeps snowing and snowing. So we're stuck in this blizzard. We get to the airport, and we have all of our bags, and we're in the airport, and we get to the terminal, get to the check-in counter, and they say, nope, we're sorry. Every flight out of Denver airport has been canceled for 3 days. So yo, crap. Well, that's not good. So we just, ask them, what can we do? It's well, we've got to start by, you guys need to hang out here for about 11 hours. So we were stuck in the Denver airport because you literally couldn't go anywhere. I mean, outside was just apocalypse had just hit, and it was wild. So we're stuck there with our men's team, our women's team, all the coaches, stuck in the airport and trying to kill time. Obviously not just us. I mean, literally everyone that was in the airport at that time was stuck. So okay, what can we do? So we started calling around, and our travel agent with Hawaiian Airlines said, look, we can fly you out of LA, out of Las Vegas, but you're going to have to drive there. It's a 14-hour drive. Okay, well, let's figure this out. When is the flight? Well, flight's tomorrow for the girls, and for the guys the following day after that. And okay, so we called the landlord we had stayed with. It's look, we got stuck here. Is there any chance we can extend our house? We're sleeping in this pretty small house. It was both teams were staying together in the same house. It was this, actually not that big, but the downstairs part of the house had this little kind of smaller room, and it had these bunk beds, but it was 8 bunk beds, and it was basically someone just had put plywood essentially with, some wood underneath, and there was 8 beds. They just went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and all in the same room. So we had stayed there, and so we get to the house, from the airport, and we drive, and it's like buses flipped over, and it's a crazy situation. We get to the house, electricity is out.
Oh gosh, like
We
there's
didn't know that. We had a bunch of people that really hadn't ever seen snow, experienced snow, so we get out of the car, and it's like huge snow fight, and it's like, yeah, let's have a blast. Go inside, and no electricity, so ice cold shower, they couldn't use washer or dryer, so everything was frozen, and we kind of freeze through the night. And the next morning, get into the car. We had gotten 2 rental cars that were available, and start driving. And you drive through the Rocky Mountains, you drive through Utah, you drive, then you eventually get to Nevada. But everywhere we stopped was so much vast land, and one of the most unbelievable drives you can probably do with a team in that specific situation, because it wasn't a planned thing. We're just like, okay, you know what, screw it, we got to get to Vegas. So we go. I just remember like driving, and you kind of come down, you eventually see the lights, of the strip and whatever, and it was just, it was cool. It was such a huge bonding moment that I think after that team really had shared so many amazing experiences with each other, good or bad, because the majority of that team had been together for 3 years, and they had lost 2 finals. And I don't need to tell you about the post-match talks we had in the hotel rooms. I mean, it's devastating. So just that was phenomenal to go through. From a coaching perspective, for me, it was just unreal. I'm sure for them, that's every player I talked to, like, that will probably be the one thing that out of, in particular that year, just stands out. It was just such an amazing experience. Going back to Denver, we actually ended up losing 3 matches, or two out of 3 matches that we weren't expecting, which really, I think I want to say 17 or 18-0 at that point. We went to Florida to play a couple matches and had our butts kicked. So they got to, thought they were just going to cruise, which is not happening, if you're playing at the highest level. I mean, everyone's out to beat you, which was a good thing. In retrospect, looking at it, I 100% take a national title over a few losses. That means, it actually puts your butt back where it needs to be. In the quarterfinals, we were down 3-4. Thibaut was down 2-4 in the third set, I think. Our number 6, Clemens, he was down a set and a break, I want to say, and just, it's like, okay, this is not happening. That's another funny moment. Sorry, please stop me. I can't keep
no, all good. Share away.
For D2, they have this national the championship festival, which is multiple sports compete at the same site for the same year. So ours was lacrosse, softball, and tennis. The facility was set up at the lacrosse field, at the softball field, and the tennis court. So it was all like, it was just a lot of noise, and not your particular tennis setup, where it's all quiet and nice. So it's just music playing the entire time. And I remember sitting on the bench. It was I think Thibaut was down 3-4 in the third set. We're down 3-4, and he gets ready for return. And I want to say it was love 30. I mean, it wasn't looking good. And this Justin Bieber song, Sorry, starts playing, which we had been listening to all season long. I was despised that song so much. And it starts playing, he looks at me and starts dying laughing and says, "There's no chance we're losing this match." Of course, he was like an unbelievable competitor. So he goes, wins that match 6-4 in the third, and then our number 6 clinched. It was the quarters, and they go on to win. It was just like one of those things that just, it's tattooed into my brain. It was very cool.
So, guys, coaches out there, if you're taking notes, how to win a future national championship, you got to get stuck over in the snow. You got to listen to Justin Bieber all year, and then let your team bond, man. No, but seriously, that is such a cool journey, Hendrik, because I remember tuning into the live stream, I believe it was like the second final you guys went to and came up short. And I was so bummed for you guys. I felt for you. And I was like, man, I hope this team gets their moment one day because they're right there. And they're a great team, great group of guys. And then the following year, I followed you guys online because I guess I didn't get the live stream. And I saw the scores at the end of the last match. I was like, they won? They did it? And then on Instagram, I think it was, I saw a video. Someone posted the video of the last point of your guys' like championship point. And the whole team, like the Sharks, just went screaming, running to their court. And I was on the phone like this, going like, yeah! You know, it was such a huge breakthrough.
Talking about it, I get goosebumps. I mean, it was one of those I just entirely froze. I just watched it. I remember standing on court 2. Actually, our number 2 had match point to clinch it, and his opponent shanks this forehand, and you know, it just sailing, comes back down, hits the back of the line, you know, for the match point. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. So I was standing on court 2, and I was just like, look, if I knew Philip, you know, he was on 2 courts down, played number 4, was in the third set tiebreaker, I knew, look, if this doesn't go well, like this really needs to happen. So you can't be like, oh, I'm just watching this, because, you know, you're playing a tiebreaker. You could be, you know, down 3 games, you know, in the third set that they had just started. So I'm like, okay, like just look, focus here. But then, yeah, I just kind of peeked back. But yeah, that point was the best way to execute in that particular moment. It was, because he was a freshman, well, not a freshman, but, you know, first year, you know, clinching a national championship in a third set breaker. The way he did was unreal, and that feeling was, as I said, I just froze. I just looked up and I said, thank God. It finally happened. It was really cool. It was very special for everyone.
You know, you've been also working with juniors, and I know this interview is going long, but I really want to cover this, is UTR. Universal Tennis Rating, guys, if you never heard of it before, is a new system that's coming out in terms of tennis. It's been around for a couple of years, but only now it's really starting to establish itself. And what it does is it helps develop ratings of players with more depth than the regular NTRP system. And it's really good for kids to build their rating up to do this for college tennis. And it's a very social thing for adults. And Hendrik is actually one of the original guys in the state of Hawaii to bring UTR over here and start promoting and running events, which the Honolulu Open is one of the events at UH every year. Can you share with us your experiences with UTR and why you believe it's so valuable?
The whole idea behind UTR is really taking a very specific approach to player development in terms of having a rating that focuses on development rather than on winning. As you probably know by now, it's an algorithm, so it factors, you know, some would argue it may be a weakness that, you know, losses are not really factored in to the extent that probably could, because there is a huge value in being able to win a lot of close matches, or on the flip side, losing a lot of close matches. I mean, it tells you a lot about a player and their ability, right? But it takes out that equation, that whole, you know, factor, I guess, of you know, I need these points to qualify for a tournament. It's a rating, and it's focused on your development as a player, which I believe is key. Looking back at my own experience, I think it would have loved to have something like this, because it was always about ranking. Like if I beat this player, I mean, obviously the ranking system in Germany works differently, but if I can beat this player, then I get this amount of points, and then I'm going to be here. And you're focusing on the wrong things. It's so short term, right? Versus with UTR, if you say, okay, I want to play in college, you know, by the time I'm, let's say, a junior in high school, I got to be, you know, for the guys at 11, 12 UTR to play at a certain level. For the girls, I got to be at a, you know, 8, 9 to play at a certain level. So you set your goals towards that, but you know that they has to go into it. So there's a progression there, and you can't weasel your way around it because it's black and white. If you have results in there, that's it. Like it doesn't deviate from that. So to me, that's really the biggest advantage of it. And I do think within the state here, it is something that can be very, very valuable. Like I was talking to that point earlier, when I grew up, I would just go and play anyone I could find.
Sure.
Here, you have a kid that lives on Kapahulu, right? It's like, hey, I want to go play tennis. I goes to Diamond Head Tennis Center. Hey, let's play a match, and you post a score, right? And you keep track of it, and you have that ability to constantly do that. I think it's very, very benefiting, not just for the individuals, but for the entire tennis community, where I thought, having those initial conversations with them, and no one really knew it was going to kick off like the way, it's going now. Obviously you see them on the tennis channel, the UTR Pro Series,
right.
Backing. It's great. And I, do also want to say that it's very different what UTR provides and what the UCA provides. I mean, everything is meant for player development. And, at the end of the day, everything has to work together, especially for a community as close as us. Like there's no reason for everyone to not work together. And whether you're usually UCA tournaments, everything has value. I think this was going to be a good addition. Let's put it that way.
Do you have any tips for juniors building their UTR up?
Play matches, record them. UTR has two different ways of putting in your scores. One are verified and one are not. So anytime you play a match, you can post your score. Some will, if it's a verified event, which actually will soon hopefully start. I did run a UTR Flex tournament, which kind of allows you to play or schedule matches on your own time whenever it suits you best. We're probably going to start a UTR Flex series once things are, once we're allowed to get back on the tennis court, which will allow those results to be verified. But even if not, it's just something for the kids. It doesn't even have to be kids. It can be adults, can be anybody really. Kind of keep, track of your progress and just get out there and play.
And Hendrik, I'd like to wrap up today's interview with everybody's favorite segment, which is the rapid fire questions. Basically, what I'm going to do is ask some real fast stuff, keep the answers short, move on to the next thing. And it's just a fun way to kind of end the interview and get to know you just that little more. So you ready to go, Hendrik?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Hendrik Bodie, your favorite color?
Blue.
Blue. Awesome. Favorite music artist?
Well, actually, I listen to a lot of electronic music, so it's tough. But if I have to give an actual artist, Mumford & Sons.
Role model growing up?
Role model, Pat Rafter.
Pat Rafter. Ooh, I remember that serve. Racket of choice. What current racket do you use?
Head Radical.
A favorite movie?
Ooh. Well, I mean, it's a Star Wars. Huge Star Wars.
Which one?
All of them. Doesn't matter. All of them.
That's just like me, man. Any Star Wars is a good Star Wars. And that includes the last one, fans out there, just FYI. Most memorable Hawaii tennis experience? I know you've had a lot, but which one stands out the most to you feel?
Probably winning night doubles. As a player, for me, I mean, obviously as a coach, we talked about it. I mean, that's by far and wide the best experience. But playing night doubles, I think that's, it is one of the coolest events I've played in. And, I played 1 year with Mike Yanni, and, he shared it. I mean, it's a very rare and special event where, the entire community gets together. It's really cool. And it's, for us, it's just unique and very memorable.
Favorite hair product or beard product? Do you have one?
No. Don't exist. Whatever is in the shower, I'll take.
Awesome. Favorite Hawaii tennis courts? Where do you like to go hit?
My favorite tennis court, center court, Diamond Head Tennis Center.
Diamond Head. Ooh, that's a legendary facility right there. A lot of people like that one. Favorite beach?
Sandy's.
Sandy's. Are you one of those guys that charges the waves?
I wouldn't call it charging, but I do body surf. I used to body surf a lot. I mean, now I'm a little more careful, but yeah, I do at times.
Favorite place to eat?
It rotates. I don't have a favorite. There's too many. There's an unbelievable amount of good food here in Hawaii, I think. I don't know. I couldn't give you one.
Singles or doubles? If you had a choice, what would you play?
Now doubles. That's more from a fitness standpoint, I think. But no, yeah, doubles. I really enjoy playing doubles. I mean, it's great. It's just the team aspect of it, having someone to play with.
Favorite hobby other than tennis?
Golf and surfing.
Favorite pro tennis player?
Obviously I had my role model as Pat Rafter, so that is one for sure. I huge fan of David Ferrer. Huge fan of David Ferrer.
Right on. Ferrer, the biggest fighter, gladiator out there, right? Favorite Grand Slam?
US Open.
U.S. Open. Interesting. Why that tournament?
It's a phenomenal event. I mean, I think it just depends on what you're looking for, right? I mean, I've been to the US Open so many times. I think it's just, I don't know if you've been recently, but it's an unreal event. The other ones are obviously, you can't argue with the history of Wimbledon, with the history of the French, even the Australian Open. I think all of them provide something different. The clay and grass, it's so much history in there that yes, you can name it hands down as everyone's favorite. I think, I don't know, even for me, if I would have been asked as a kid, which event would you want to win? Wimbledon, for sure. But, now looking at the event itself, I think the US Open is amazing.
If you could give one tip to an aspiring junior player or a total beginner, what would Coach Hendrick tell them?
Play for the love of the game, not to win.
Play to enjoy it. Simple as that, man. That's awesome. You have the floor at the moment. I wanted to leave things open for closing thoughts. Because we're on lockdown, is there anything you want to say to the Hawaii tennis community before we chat?
First of all, I want to thank you for everything you do for the Hawaii tennis community. I think it's awesome. I can't tell you how many times, I've watched your videos and just any type of competitive matches that are happening in Hawaii. I think it's awesome. So thank you for all of that. I think I mentioned this a few times before to other people. I think the Hawaii tennis community is amazing. Everyone knows each other. Everyone is extremely well connected within the community. It's just great to be a part of it. And, I think for the junior aspect of it, it really is great to see kids here grow up. One thing I will say that always stands out to me is how the kids are brought up, with how much respect, and how much respect for the game, but how much respect for people in general. You do not get that in a lot of places. My personal experience as a player was very different, of course, and the atmosphere is very different, and kids are not the same everywhere. So it really speaks to the community here, with the character of kids there that are being brought up, which is one of the most valuable things I think you can look at. I just enjoy being here. Family's here. This is now my home, and anything I can do to help, I will do, or try to do to the best of my ability, and hopefully, it helps a kid or two or an adult or two, and yeah, that's it. I enjoy speaking, tennis anytime, talking about tennis anytime. Love doing this, and thank you again for having me.
Oh man, thank you, Hendrick, for joining us. That means a lot when you say you see all my videos and you guys all enjoy them too. That's exactly why I do what I do, and I really appreciate you with all your accolades and adventures to be able to share it with us here today. Because I'm hoping we can both inspire someone else down the road to do the same thing. So thank you for joining us, Hendrick.
Absolutely.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us for Tennis Ninja TV today. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. Like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. and I hope to see you guys on the next video. God bless, be safe, and aloha. Laters, guys.